Hey everyone, this is Charlie Davis, and I'm going to talk to you about the permissibility of pet ownership. The specific question I am addressing is it morally permissible for individuals to support the institution of pet ownership? If so, how and why? Explain how each of the following philosophers would answer the question: Peter Singer, Paul Taylor, Mark Sagoff. Then what do you think? Make an argument of your own in response to the question, developing a position of your own to demonstrate your philosophical skill. My thesis states that I believe it is morally permissible to own pets if you have adopted them from a shelter or are rescuing them from another family or the wild. I do not believe that it is morally permissible to breed animals to be pets or use pets for acts of service, specifically that involve shaping their behaviors to serve a purpose to you. To begin this presentation, I'll define some key terms, and then I will outline the stakes, explain the philosophy, and then present my argument. Morality is the principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong or good and bad behavior. And for something to be morally permissible, this means that by way of morals, it is indifferent. It does not corrupt morality. Sentience is the capacity to experience feelings and sensations. Equal moral consideration is the equal consideration of human and non-human animal interests because animals have the capacity for suffering and enjoyment. Individualism applies to ethical theories with an individualistic aim. For example, ethical theories that value individual beings as the unit of value. An example for theories would be utilitarian and teleology. And holism, oppositely, applies to ethical theories with a holistic aim. For example, theories that value ecosystem as the unit of value, such as land ethics. The stakes surrounding my argument and why it matters is it examines the connectivity of different ethical theories in regards to human superiority and pet ownership. It creates a conversation between Singer, Taylor, and Sagoff that leads to a conclusion that there may be little permissibility to pet ownership. And the stakes regarding my exact argument are important because by analyzing the permissibility of supporting pet ownership, viewers or readers are forced to create their own opinions for pet ownership and question whether the relationship they have with their pet is morally permissible or not. I want to begin my explanation of the philosophy behind this question by first introducing an example that relates to my grandpa. Over my life, in addition to owning pet cats, my grandparents have fed and sheltered many stray cats. They live on a farm and cats will just show up. Either they wandered there or they were dropped off on the road. And my grandpa has a bed or two under some covered areas outside and he feeds them daily. My grandma and I have even named some of them. They leave dead birds, mice, moles, other rodents all over the property. And my grandpa celebrates these kills, though not the birds. He gets a little upset about those ones. But what is the right thing to do? Should my grandpa be feeding them and sheltering them? Should he spend his personal money on these stray cats to be getting them fixed or feeding them? He doesn't own them. They don't present him with any service besides maybe some rodent maintenance. Does he have a duty to do nice things for them? My goal is to use this example in application to each of the three philosophers I'll explain. So yeah, the cats you see pictured on this slide are only the few of the cats that have shown up over the years. Don't remember what the name on the far left is, but the middle is Goya, or my grandma called him Carrot, and on the far right is Carter. For the explanation of philosophy, I'll discuss Peter Singer's utilitarian perspective, Paul Taylor's teleologist perspective, and Mark Sagoff's land ethics perspective. Utilitarians argue that the right action is the one that does as much good as possible. Peter Singer's utilitarian view could argue that if you fix the animal so that it cannot reproduce and you're giving it a good life, that it is permissible. One must weigh each sentient being's interest against others to make decisions that will cause the most benefit and the least suffering overall. Peter Singer particularly argues for equal moral consideration of human and non-human animal interests because animals have the capacity for suffering and enjoyment. They are sentient. This being said, as long as the animal is being well taken care of and is not creating a negative impact, such as on the human or on the ecosystem, that a human can have a pet. It is important to note that Singer does not believe that non-human animals have rights that humans are to respect, but they deserve equal consideration to that of humans when costs and benefits are being weighed. The nuance of weighing the costs and benefits of keeping animals as pets can lead to several outcomes. For example, if decisions are made solely regarding what will cause the most benefit and the least suffering, killing animals or causing them to suffer, as long as the overall suffering in the world is decreased, can sometimes be condoned. Feral cats have a large negative impact on the biodiversity, so Singer and other utilitarians must weigh whether catching, fixing, or releasing is the most beneficial strategy, because it still allows cats to wreak havoc on the community's ecosystems. It costs humans money. There are many options to be weighed there. But in addition to costs that a utilitarian must weigh, include literal financial costs. In 2020, $103.6 billion was spent on pets in the United States. Is this justifiable? Could this money have been spent on more important things? Because Singer specifically cares about the sentient interest of animals, he might believe that money that is spent on animals in efforts to disrupt suffering is money well spent. Money spent on fixing animals, protecting the ecosystem, filling their bellies, it's all money well spent. But if the costs, and not only financial costs, but the costs outweigh the good of owning a pet, Singer might suggest that just killing the pet or the animal is more beneficial than owning it as a pet. In the example of my grandpa, given that he is a retired man and is not exhausting valuable time and money is of no concern, what he is doing is okay because he is bettering the life experience of the cats. Though Singer might suggest he fix them if possible, and it's important to watch how many cats accumulate all at once to distract from an overkilling of the rodent species. Paul Taylor, as a teleologist, is concerned with human superiority. Taylor believes in respect for nature, including animals, and to achieve this, we reject the claim that humans are superior either in merit or in worth to other living things. We are ready to adopt the attitude of respect. Denial of human superiority is itself the result of taking the perspective on nature built into the first three elements of the biocentric outlook. Taylor would argue that there is a sense of moral ickiness in pet ownership. Teleology argues that everything in nature has a purpose or function, which grounds itself in value. So Taylor feels that non-human animals have their own purpose and value outside of being a human's pets. The animals have their own ways to flourish and they don't need humans. Taylor objects to the claim that humans are superior, so he would reject a pet ownership because to own something means to be in control of it, which means you feel you are superior over it. Taylor does not reject relationships with animals, though, and he does not believe in ownership or using animals for human purposes because that is just exploitation, further suggesting human superiority. But relating this back to my grandfather example, Taylor would be fine with what my grandpa is doing because one, my grandpa does not own these cats or possess a claim over them, and two, they're free to come and go as they please and do whatever they want. Mark Sagoff, a land ethicist, believes that a thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. So, for example, if a cat is wreaking havoc on the biotic community, Sagoff would be in favor of someone taking it in and removing it from the outdoors. He would also demand that pets be fixed to prohibit reproduction, as overpopulation can cause more harm to the environment. In regards to the moral permissibility of pet ownership as a whole, he would argue that humans are obligated to prevent destruction done to biotic communities at the hands of traditionally domesticated animals because it is at the fault of humans. Sagoff sees value in ecosystems as a whole, and ecosystems aren't always flower patches and rainbows. A natural ecosystem does violence to individual animals. In referring back to the example of cats, it is the fault of humans that cats are so populous and present. So it would be our duty to fix that problem. That might be by catching them, fixing, releasing them, whatever method necessary. And while Sagoff advocates for nature to run its natural course, I do feel he'd argue it is permissible to adopt animals from shelters or unfortunate situations, but not to buy them from breeders or support industries of animal exploitation because adopting doesn't do any harm to the biotic community. And so my grandpa maybe shouldn't be making stray cats comfortable on his property because all he is doing is promoting their destruction to the biotic community. I argue that it is not morally permissible for individuals to support the institution of pet ownership, but it may be morally permissible to have a pet or to house a pet. I believe that the ownership of an animal as a pet inevitably comes with expectations of this animal to serve some kind of purpose to you, even if that is just companionship, and that to demand that from animals suggests human superiority. If humans believe they are superior, supported by Taylor's argument, then they reject that non-human animals have a value of their own. This is problematic because when you believe this of the animals humans claim to love and cherish, their pets, it opens the door to more moral ickiness in sectors such as agriculture and the exploitation of animals for consumption. Additionally, the rejection of human superiority and ownership in this case is in recognition to the negative consequences that have followed actions of human superiority, particularly to the ecosystem. Humans have done many things that have drastically damaged the ecosystem, and it's due to the principle that they're above other species. And this category also goes with breeding animals. That also goes into the moral ickiness category, and that suggests that humans can alter life and breeds of animals, whatever they choose, typically for aesthetics. Additionally, I feel that all domesticated animals fall under the suffering which is caused by us category because humans are responsible for the transportation of animals to places that they wouldn't naturally be, and for the overpopulation of animals, such as cats, because of our irresponsible breeding and handling methods. Therefore, while we are not superior, it is our duty to mitigate the consequences of our lifestyle choices. This might include adopting from shelters, fixing them and releasing them, and a variety of other strategies. Under the premises that humans are responsible for the majority of animal suffering, humans are responsible for the overpopulation of domesticated animal breeds, which in return makes us responsible for the environmental damage that these animals are creating. And I believe that the right thing to do is to spay and neuter pets to prevent a continued growth in population and to provide them with good lives, shelter, food, love, but also not to project a human superiority lens on their functions. Thank you guys for listening to my argument on the permissibility of pet ownership. My goal through this presentation is that you gained insight into the arguments of pet ownership from the views of Singer, Taylor, and Sagoff, and that through different arguments, each theory would offer little permissibility to the institution of pet ownership. Hopefully, I've justified my argument that pet ownership is morally messy and is not permissible because I reject human superiority, though I don't think that this means we can't offer love, shelter, and resources to animals and invite them into our lives and homes. Have a great rest of your day.